have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was me and Rank. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
Hello and welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, powered by the Fantasy Points Media Group. This is episode 178 and episode 4 of season 3 of Behind the Grind. As always, I am joined by my right-hand man here, Major Caldwell, and our guest this week, representing Clarkstown North Senior High School, and was both an executive producer and senior director with Sirius XM, and now he's living the dream as the founder of the Bettor Sports Network. Please welcome Matt Deutsch. How you doing, Matt?
What's up, guys? Woo! Clarkstown North, you dug deep on that class of 92. I'm an old man. R-A-M-S, Rams.
That's our favorite part of the show, the internet stalking, the preparation that goes into each and every show that you do with love. Not really harassment, but love is how we like to call it on this show. So we have a few bit of nuggets here, a little bit of blast from your past coming up throughout the show when we go behind the grind. The show, again, I said, powered by the Fantasy Points Media Group. We're not ashamed of plugging just about anything and everything that comes along. I might even plug green tape here if I have to, if it'll send you a free sample. That's how we roll on this show. But we know over at the Bettor Sports Network, you guys have all kinds of things going on over there, Matt. I just want to give you a quick second here, right off the top of the show, just kind of plug the Bettor Sports Network, because we're going to talk about this as it is part of your journey a little bit later in the show. But just what are the great things going on right now at the Bettor Sports Network? Because we're hitting Major League Baseball season. We just finished the Masters. You guys are talking all things sports, not just fantasy football.
Well, you're right. It's certainly my life as a fledgling entrepreneur starting Bettor Sports Network, 24-hour free talk service. We focus on fantasy sports and sports betting and collectibles, and we're big on entertainment and fun factor and interaction. We love to talk with our fans and chat with our fans on our Bettor Sports Network app and on the website at bettorsports.com. We stream everywhere, and we love pumping out great sports content, and it's an amazing time of year. Like you said, baseball starting, the NFL draft this year, NBA, NHL playoffs. It's all happening, and we all can't wait for football season to count down. We're almost there, too.
I'm already looking forward to getting back on with Lisa Ann and Rick Camella here in the regular season. Somehow, some way, they kept bringing me back each and every week to talk about Thursday Night Football, so I cannot wait for that to go down. But like you said, entertainment, that's what we're in here, the sports entertainment industry. And what is more entertaining than a football player proposing to a kicking net? That's what we have now with Odell Beckham Jr. signing with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, he made that proposal back when he was a New York Giant, but now we got to start talking about Odell Beckham Jr., Lamar Jackson, because now, I mean, let's be honest, Lamar Jackson, he's not going anywhere. You don't make this move for Odell Beckham Jr. if you don't already know that Lamar Jackson is staying place.
Well, it'll be exciting to see the Ravens with a little more firepower on offense, assuming Odell is healthy. I'm not going to touch it, though. Too much risk for me. I can't buy into Odell Beckham in a traditional fantasy league, guys. I'm not taking him before the 10th round. I'd love to see it. I'll be rooting for him. Certainly showtime for Baltimore, and hopefully they'll embrace Odell and it'll be a good marriage. I like Bateman on that team, and I'm a sucker for J.K. Dobbins. He's the Raven I'm going to have on all my teams this year, J.K. Dobbins. I'm rooting for Odell, but I can't advise anybody. I can't believe in the knee. It's just, he's just not healthy in the past, and I can't bank on that in fantasy football. But great story, and probably the only team that would have given Odell the money that he was looking for.
Yeah, I think it was $15 million for a one-year deal, $3 million incentives. 13.8 of that was guaranteed money for a guy who's had 2 ACL surgeries here in the last 3 years. He's 31 years old, and he hasn't had more than 45 yards per game since 2019, which also happened to be his last 1,000-yard season under offensive coordinator there, Todd Monken. There's a little bit of continuity there between offensive coordinator there with the Cleveland Browns, now being the offensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens. We'll see how that factors into it. But I think you hit the nail on the head here when you're talking about Rashad Bateman. I think he's the biggest winner of it all. If you're not out there buying Rashad Bateman right now or getting him on your roster, now is the time while everyone's talking about Odell and forgetting about probably the best receiver on this team, not the best pass catcher, because that already belongs to Mark Andrews. But we've looked at this. Since 2017, only one Ravens pass catcher, wide receiver, has been a top 24 wide receiver, and that was in 2021 when Marquise Brown was the wide receiver 22. That means I think Bateman has every opportunity to slide into that top 24 range, and nobody is talking about it.
Well, people in our industry loved Bateman coming out of college. I wasn't that big a fan. I was much more on Tylan Wallace. I love the sleepers. Wallace hasn't made it. Bateman has. And in the limited time that we saw him on the field, I have been impressed. I think he does look good. He looks like a player. Again, I'm not sure he can stay healthy, but you're right. He's probably not going to be a value, though. Everyone's going to be thinking the way we are. He's going to be a fifth-round pick by the time late August rolls around. I still think Dobbins is the guy, but would love to see Bateman break out there. We've seen Lamar. I think he could support a top wide receiver if it all comes together the right way in Baltimore.
Well, I like how you mentioned you like the sleepers, because Major, he likes to go deep with sleepers. We did a couple shows here where we talked about deep sleepers. I also kind of heard a rumor that you like to go really deep, like garbage bin deep here, pulling players that may be obscure to some that have a little bit of a track record of hitting. So we want to call, what are the Deutsch Delivers type players here heading into 2023?
Well, I do like under the radar players. You know, the way I do my fantasy football preparation is all my own. I mean, I work on fantasy sports media all day long. I listen to the best experts on Bettor Sports Network talking about their picks, and I use none of it. I really try to shut the groupthink out. I take everybody else's rankings out of it. I try to watch as much tape as I can of the guys in college when they're coming in, and then I just analyze the depth charts. I really don't get into offensive line and coaching schemes. I'm looking at the depth charts. I'm seeing where the opportunities are going to come when the injuries happen, when suspensions happen, or guys just don't fit in that well. And we've seen this story before. When you're an old man like me, you could almost predict the storylines that are going to happen. And you could be like, that guy's not going to make it the whole year, so I'm going to take this guy. So, I mean, there's different types of sleepers. Of course, I'll still, the last year bum, the player who was bad last year, going to rebound this year. I'm big on that. I'm even bigger on guys that I scouted out of college that I was really high on, and they didn't make it right away. Guys even like Spencer Ware, the old running back for Seattle, that was like 5 years in. But I remember liking him back then. So as soon as they get a shot, I go back to my scouting and say, I liked him then, I like him now. So, I mean, I could run off some guys. I mean, there's some really hilarious ones on here. I mean, Braxton Berrios going back to Miami as potentially the third wide receiver with Waddle and Hill there. Berrios, the scapegoat in New York for dropping this Jets pass when they were supposed to beat the Vikings. And that was not a great pass in the end zone that Berrios dropped. And they sold him out. He didn't have a good run with the Jets, but he's not ultra talented. My University of Miami guy coming home, I could see Berrios making some Hill and Waddle owners not that happy when he has some big games. I would go into Tyquan Thornton guys in New England with, now that they have a real offensive coordinator. I think he's the fastest player on that team. Sure, Juju and Devontae Parker, they have some things there. I love Ramondre Stevenson, but I think Thornton showed a lot of speed, and I think we're going to see a Patriot offense that we haven't seen before, almost the antithesis of what we saw last year with the clown show calling the offensive plays in New England. So Thornton, you can get him for a song. Irv Smith, right? The guy who can't stay healthy, tight end in Minnesota. We've seen this happen before. He's going to have 1 year in his career that pops. He's going to play 12 games once. I'm even asking for just 12 games. But per Irv Smith in that Cincinnati offense, if it works out, why not? Again, you could get him for a song. Speaking of Cincinnati, Travion Williams. I drafted this guy out of college. He's never sniffed the field. I'm a Mixon guy as far as running backs go in Cincinnati. But I like Travion Williams, who came out first, and he's never gotten a chance. And without Pirine there and Mixon potentially on the way out, why not Travion Williams this year running the ball for Cincinnati? Why not Jerome Ford In Cleveland, you talk about Nick Chubb. This guy never gets hurt. So what's going to happen? Nick Chubb's going to get hurt. I love Jerome Ford last year. Even if Chubb doesn't get hurt, we've seen room on the Browns for a second running back. Sure, he's not going to be an RB1, probably not even an RB2. But for those 3 or 4 weeks or more when Chubb is out of there, or if he discovers a role, and in Dynasty, you got to be buying Jerome Ford right now for sure. Other guys I drafted last year is really high on, showed a little bit. Alec Pierce, I'll draft him higher than you will this year, right? Because people know who Alec Pierce is. You could say, oh, Matt, he's not a sleeper. Fine. I'm going to take him before you're going to take him. I'm going to take Khalil Shakir in Buffalo before you're going to take Khalil Shakir in Buffalo. Another guy, not a sleeper, Joshua Palmer at the Chargers. Fine. You know who he is. I know who he is. I'm going to take him before you do. So, there's guys out there that I support. I don't get off them once I draft them in college. Some other names here. You'll love this one. Michael Gallup, right? He's not a sleeper. This guy's disappointed me 2 years in a row. I've held him in Dynasty League. But, right, why not? They signed Brandon Cooks. Everyone loves CeeDee Lamb. What's going to happen? Gallup's going to score 12 touchdowns this year, especially in a non-PPR league, in a touchdown league. Gallup would be the guy. Some other Taylor Heineke in Atlanta, right? I love what the Falcons are doing now. Not only Jonnu Smith, who hasn't done anything in years, but is a good ball carrier with Kyle Pitts and Drake London and the running backs they have there in Cordero. So I don't know if Desmond Ridder is going to be the guy. I've seen what Heineke can do. He'll receptions, but he will take that ball and he will keep forcing it down the field, and he'll run and he'll play with grit. And Heineke at quarterback in Atlanta would be someone that I'd be gobbling up there. And I'll give you one more, Rashid Shaheed. I don't know what else this guy has to do. And is there a better player to fit with Derek Carr than Rashid Shaheed, who's just going to go deep and just make big play after big play? Never got any opportunity. But for a 3-week span, everybody in America was saying, who is this guy, Shaheed? So those are my sleepers. I could go on and on.
No, you named off pretty much my list from last week. You did a really good job there. Jerome Ford is one of those dudes that I'm like high on. Alec Pierce is another one. Rashid Shaheed is another one. Like you like knocked it out the park, man.
Come on, Major, say it with me. We have the need for Shaheed on this show. That's how we roll over here. Irv Smith Jr. has been a favorite of mine and Terrace for the longest time. It's one of those players that you just can't quit. For me, one of those other guys is Josh Gordon. I'm still literally rostering the Sea Dragon right now on a couple of my Dynasty leagues just because I can, right? I mean, that's just where we're at. I love the fact that you mentioned a lot of guys are entering their second year, third year type players. That's where we usually see the breakout. And with draft season upon us, make sure to check out the Fantasy Points prospect guide over on fantasypoints.com. Brett Whitfield does an excellent job breaking down each prospect ahead of the NFL draft, from strengths and weaknesses to rookie rankings. They got you covered over on fantasypoints.com. Nice way to slide in that promo there as we head into the rabbit hole with Matt Deutsch here, going a little bit, aka the Viper Pit, however you want to call it. And the best way to introduce yourself to the Viper Pit is to talk about what your intro music would be if you were coming in the bottom of the ninth to close out a ball game. What's that music that we're going to hear in the stadium?
Oh my gosh. Well, now you put me on the spot. I mean, I'm a Red Hot Chili Pepper guy. I'm a Bee Gees guy. I'm an Elvis guy. That is a really tough one. I mean, I would go with Suck My Kiss from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Don't read too much into it, but it's a great power jam to get me pumped up.
No,
that's man, I thought you were going to go with like a hunk of Burning Love or something there, coming out to the bullpen, coming out to the mound. So then you've got that song. You got the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then, that's kind of, I can see you being a Chili Pepper guy. But what is that one guilty pleasure song? One that maybe you don't want to admit to others that you listen to. Maybe that Taylor Swift. Maybe that Rihanna. Something like that. What's that song? You're like, you know what? I'm kind of a Baby Shark kind of guy.
That's an easy one for me, and my friends have seen me too many times take the microphone and sing "It's Raining Men" by the Weather Girls. Coming to a wedding, coming to a bachelor party or a wedding near you. Don't give me a microphone and play the Weather Girls.
That's funny. That's really, really funny. I was not expecting that one. Let's talk about you as a young lad. Let's talk about young Maddie.
Oh my gosh!
Did you play any sports growing up?
I was a big athlete, as I would say a natural athlete, so much so that baseball was really the hardest sport for me to play. The hand-eye coordination of hitting a round ball with a round bat. I didn't have a lot of practice. I played a lot of soccer, basketball, football, and I was just naturally gifted and able to play those sports and didn't really put the time into baseball, and I was just a terrible baseball player. So it was soccer for me growing up and tackle football and flag football with my friends messing around. I got to a pretty high level in soccer in high school and just burned out, guys. It was every day, run around the school 3 times, 3-hour practice, cardiovascular. I just wanted to fool around with my friends. So I kind of burned out and quit in 10th grade right before it started getting good. I took 2 years off, went to college at the University of Buffalo and jumped right in immediately to rugby, a sport that I had never played before. First weekend of college, I joined the rugby team. The second weekend of college, I was playing Seaside as the starting fly half in Seaside, a game nobody cared about with drunk ruggers refereeing the game. I scored 3 tries. I got terrorized by the rugby teams after the game. I had to strip my clothes off, run around the house naked, 1,000 guys pouring beer all over me. Classic rugby party. Police was involved. I was hooked from the beginning. And I played rugby at a pretty high level at the University of Buffalo. I played all 4 years as team captain, played for the New York State squad, and then was lucky enough to be able to play here in New York locally for New York Old Blue, which was a serious men's rugby team with a lot of tradition. And then we got into the Harp Super League, where we were getting on planes and playing rugby in Atlanta and Boston and Houston in a 12-team league. This was probably late 90s. And it was a lot of fun. The competition was really high, but we didn't really have the post-game social activity. The parties weren't there anymore. It was too serious for me, guys. And I just burned out again and just kind of left it. I did play for Team USA in the Maccabi games in Israel. Wow. It's kind of like the Jewish Olympics. I was in the 15th Maccabi games with my Team USA teammates. We won the gold medal with the rugby team. I only played 1 game of the 5. I was on the wing, so they didn't let me play fly half because we had a really good team. So I had to play wing. So basically, what does the wing do? Gets the ball and scores. So I scored 3 tries in our 1 game against Argentina. I was man of the match, and I had to buy everybody beer that night. But that was my story. I played at a high level. I love rugby, thinking man's game. No pads, no blocking, which means you really don't have the injuries that you have in the NFL with football, where players are launching themselves with a helmet and pads. There's no wrapping. Everything in rugby, you have to wrap. So it's really a lot safer. Sure, you get ACL tears and sprained ankles and broken noses, but we're not paralyzing each other, So, right. Rugby, a gentleman's sport, and a lot of partying after the game.
So who's some of the players that you looked up to when you were a kid? Like any sport, it doesn't matter what sport.
Oh boy. Well, my idol, this is terrible, is Vince Coleman on the St. Louis Cardinals. So I had every Vince Coleman card you could possibly have. I was a misguided youth in New York suburbs rooting for the St. Louis Cardinals in the 80s. And Vince Coleman stole 100 bases 3 years in a row. Was my favorite player. I had the tattoos, the minis, the sport flicks. I had the full album. And then when Vince Coleman was traded to the Mets, he threw firecrackers at kids out the window of a car and apparently was not a very good guy. So, that was my role model growing up. But all of the sports icons in the 80s, I fell in love with. Mario Lemieux. I was a Rangers fan, a New York Rangers fan in hockey in 1983. And then when Mario Lemieux walked into Madison Square Garden the next year in 1984, I dropped the Rangers and became a Penguin fan because Lemieux was so special and did so many things that I had never seen before. Of course, Michael Jordan, for sure. In basketball and Dan Marino, somebody, I wasn't a Dolphin fan, but really respected the fact that, he could do it all with just his arm. There was no movement. There was no anything with Marino, but talk about a howitzer for an arm and as accurate as I've ever seen, Dan Marino. So really all the icons of the 80s can go on with Tony Gwynn, and all the players that we really love to watch. And it was a great time for sports to grow up in the 80s and 90s. And I had no kids, so I was watching everything.
I love the fact that when we bring someone on this show, whether it's a fantasy analyst or a media personality, it's usually football as that first love, or baseball or basketball. Rarely do we get the rugby kind of end of things. Like me, I played second row, and I just loved getting my head in there and playing dirty. I played on as a wing and inside center there for a while, and they moved me to the inside because it wasn't physical enough for me. I needed that extra kind of I'm wired a little bit different, so I know how you feel about that. And it just, you're right. As much as you want to go out there and beat the living crap out of each other, at the end of the day, it's not like you're raking your cleat across someone's face. Now, I've seen that in women's rugby because I coached high school girls here in the same sport. They're a different breed altogether, man. You want to get vicious, watch women's rugby at the high school level. But you'd think it'd be a lot more physical, especially with how hard you're trying to hit somebody. But you said it. And we're starting to see that rugby tackle come into football a little bit more. I think the Seattle Seahawks were actually doing a lot more of that, where they got their head in there and they do more of that roll rather than that head on. So we've seen that rugby sneaking into the NFL games as far as tackling is concerned, to try and get that head out, which is something I don't think a lot of people talk about. But I want to talk about something, and it's about decisions, because, tackling is all about the decision, right? You can either decide to throw your head in there, or you can get it off to the side. But everything we do comes down to a decision or two in our life, and a path that we choose. So what is a decision that changed the trajectory of your life?
Well, I mean, I would think for me, coming out of college, I think I learned that I wanted to just get paid to watch sports. That was my goal growing up. And I liked radio, and I kind of thought it could be radio, but it really could be anything. And my mother begged me, guys, to go play rugby in Europe when I graduated college. Matthew, go see how good you are. Go to Europe. We'll pay for it. I said, Mom, I just want to fool around with my friends. I've been schooling my whole life. I got nothing to do now. I got a job. I make a little bit of money, and I just want to be with my friends. So I kind of turned down the opportunity to play rugby abroad. That's one that could have changed things for me. Another one was just the path on the broadcast side. I'd always wanted to be a play-by-play broadcaster, and living here in the New York City suburbs, really in the number one market, never felt like I should leave. And I haven't left. Over 25 years I've been here, and I've worked at all the big spots and kind of made it work, which is rare. Most of the people in my world are going all 15 different cities to try to get back to New York. So I never left, but if I would have chased my dream to be a play-by-play broadcaster and maybe done some single A or rookie ball, from here and there, and then worked my way up, I think things would be a lot different. I don't want to say those guys don't work hard. Everybody works hard. And to be great, you have to really be, obsessed with your craft, right? So the best play-by-play guys, they're putting in the time, and they're listening to themselves nonstop, and they're learning as much as they can about the games, and they're talking to the players. So I'm not saying they don't work hard, but there's a lot different between, being a radio producer with the weight of the world on your shoulders and, sort of making no money and impossible deadlines and sort of pouring all your emotions in just to make that work, every single day, reinventing a new show, from scratch as a producer. That's a different kind of grind. What I'm doing now, being a fledgling entrepreneur and a startup broadcast entity, I mean, this is a 24/7 nonstop thing that's just always with me, from the smallest detail to the biggest dream. And, it's just a lot different. If I was doing play-by-play, if I was 25 years into it right now, I'd probably be in a pretty comfortable, cushy seat. Not that these guys don't deserve it. I would never take away from people that have made it all the way to the top, but I kind of reimagined my career if I could have done that and grinded out those 10 cities over 10 years and lived in all those hotels and done the 3 jobs every day, which those guys did. Things would be a lot different potentially for me right now.
Well, let's not sell yourself short. We are an award-winning startup, right? We got a couple of FSGA awards under your belt there. I mean, things are going pretty good on the Bettor Sports Network. Now, let's talk about that journey a little bit here, because you've been around for a while, whether it's radio and you've seen Sirius XM, the startup networks, this and that. What are some of the biggest changes from when you first started to where you're at now, as far as the industry is concerned as a whole?
Wow. I love this non-scripted questions. Yeah. And normally I get to have an idea of what we're going to talk about, and I think about it for days. So I love this unscripted, spontaneous. So there's been so many changes. I mean, gosh, our industry is completely different even than it was 5 years ago, let alone 25 years ago. I mean, let's just, start from the basics. When we first started, there was no fantasy sports on the radio. There was no fantasy sports on television. This is the 80s. This is the 90s. Even though we were playing fantasy sports before the internet. And then in 1996 and 97, the internet sort of catapulted fantasy sports into sort of the rocket ship mode, there still was no media coverage at all. You would call into a sports radio station and want to talk about your fantasy team. Producer would not put you on the air. The host would not want to take your question.
You would get laughed at, right?
The host, well, they would laugh at you, but they were really laughing because they didn't know the sports as well as we did. We know all 53 players on the NFL rosters. We know all 26 players on the MLB. We know the whole farm system. And those hosts were kind of intimidated that we're going to call up and talk about players that they don't know. But you're right. It was never given the light of day. I worked at some big time places, and it was just cover the Mets, cover the Yankees, cover the Giants and the Jets. We're not going to talk about fantasy sports and and other things that have now become more mainstream. So, I mean, that to say the least is, the biggest change in my piece of the business, which is fantasy sports and sports betting on the radio, in media, on streaming. So when I got to Sirius XM, I mean, that was something that I was able to have a lot of help with and build and eventually create the first radio network dedicated to fantasy sports, taking my passions of fantasy sports and radio, blending them together with the help of Steve Cohen at Sirius XM, who got our CEO Mel Karmazin to say yes to fantasy sports radio in 2010. We launched that network. So, I mean, that's just one of the changes. Obviously, the pandemic, guys, changed so much from the broadcast side. We're all doing remote broadcasting, where a lot of us are working out of home studios. There's no more work from home, traditional studio. And I'll say for the better, in the past, we would never use Skype or Zoom to be able to conduct media interviews. And it wasn't viewed as high enough quality. And then the pandemic came, and Jimmy Fallon on the Tonight Show and the Today Show, and we're all doing President Obama on Zoom, and all of a sudden it's okay. And now we've embraced this technology. We could do talk shows wherever we are, on the fly, on our phones. We have access. People don't even need traditional radio towers anymore. What I'll say is the democratization of sports talk, or just talk radio in general, so that you have Twitter Spaces, you have Clubhouse, you have obviously Twitch, and all these areas where people don't need to have a traditional media company to be heard. And that's a good thing, that the media isn't the gatekeeper of who gets to be heard and seen. Everybody gets to be heard and seen now. And you know what? It's survival of the fittest now. And you're seeing it in the broadcast media, where all the broadcast companies are getting killed because, basically there wasn't enough innovation, and the innovation came from the people that didn't have the towers, and they developed the technology and they found better ways to do it. And you're seeing it right now. You're seeing a big shift in broadcast media, and the people that have kind of had all the power and had all the ears and eyes over the last 50, 60 years now have to scramble to catch up to what one person can do with this powerful technology. We've never lived in a better time for people to be able to take their dreams right out ahead and make them a reality. And Bettor Sports Network is kind of an example of that, of sort of dreaming up something new, finding something that the industry does not have, and building around smart, high character people that want to do great things and all have a common vision, and kind of use the innovation that's in modern technology now to kind of change the world. And we've done that.
Oh, that's a great answer to that. At what point did you want to make sports media? Like, you wanted to be that guy? Like, when did you decide to do that? Was it like as a kid? Was it out of college? Or, at what point did you decide, like, I'm taking the sports media thing serious?
Well, I think it was coming out of college that I decided I wasn't going to be an athlete. I wasn't going to be doing play-by-play. So I'm going to dive in and learn everything about the broadcast industry, radio back then, all of the cutting of the tape and running control boards and selling and writing and doing all the things. Like, there's a sniper on the roof. Matt Deutsch, go cover the story. And I'm running out there with my microphone to cover this news story with some sniper on the roof. So that adrenaline, that passion for broadcast, right? Matt's from Canada, so let's give it, when 20 inches of snow are coming down and they're canceling school, everybody else is doing a snow dance. The broadcasters are going to work that day to do snow closings. And we're taking pride in opening up our radio stations in the bad weather and being there for our community. So I've never lost that pride, that passion for broadcast, whether it be in a community format, whether it be in sports. And listen, when you're working at WFAN radio in New York City, the #1 radio station back in the day in 1987, the first radio station that covered all sports. So you're working at a tremendously high level with smart, talented, amazing people, and they sort of push each other. to be able to work at the highest level. And then when you're at Sirius XM, where all the smart people from AM and FM radio went in the early 2000s, and we were all competing against each other in AM and FM, now we're all working together at Sirius XM and doing things that have never been done before with the most amazing people. So I kind of thrive on that. I want to be around people that kind of raise the bar. I want to kind of be in a situation where I refuse to be outworked and can kind of, show what I can do every single day and kind of make other people better and see their work and borrow for them and steal from them and sort of, collaborate with them to kind of create things that have never been done before. So I think the answer to the question is, the media is really the best way that I found to pour my passion in. I'm a very creative person. I can't just do the same thing every day. I can't talk about the Mets every single day. I can't talk about the Yankees every single day here in New York. I must be an alien because everybody else can do it. So I need to be able to innovate. I need to be able to change. I mean, to watch my broadcast industry potentially, what I thought of not really doing enough innovation or not taking advantage of things that were out there really drove me crazy. And I had a lot of ideas, and it's not easy to get everybody's ideas taken care of when you're working at an organization with a lot of people that want to do a lot of things. And I just needed to find an opportunity to carry out those ideas and to say, not be the whiny guy in the corner and say, well, radio hasn't done this and we haven't done that and we've ruined our industry. Well, no, I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to try to pour everything I can into get kids back on the radio and show people that audio is cool and there's things you can do with imagination that would be sort of new for people that are just used to seeing things with their own eyes. And that's not to take away from video either. We are a video network at Bettor Sports Network. We have done things that I've never done before. We do live phone calls on Bettor Sports Network, video calls, so people can call in and show their cards and talk about collectibles. People can show what they're cooking in the parking lots at football games when we do tailgates. So video has opened up so much for us in what I used to do on the radio side. We can open up a pack of cards and show them on video. We can show all our collectibles, the trophies that we've won from our fantasy sports championships. And it's a lot of fun to be able to connect with people with video as well. And it's just a lot different than audio. So I respect all the platforms. And, before it's all said and done, I'd like to do it all: radio, video, written word, and whatever's next.
So broadcasting was your first job out of college, or did you do something else and then came back to it?
Right into radio major. I graduated in 1996 and just sort of made a list of all the radio station, regardless of format, in a tri-state area of Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. I called every single one of them and tried to get my way into an interview and found a community radio station in Westchester County, New York, WVOX and WRTN, independently owned. It was perfect. I didn't go to broadcast school. I didn't go to Syracuse University, the Newhouse School, or Fordham University, where these guys and girls get a golden ticket when they come out. And congratulations to them for being able to make it through those colleges and earn those degrees and put themselves in great position. I didn't have that. So it's kind of just me learning everything on the community level. Like I said before, we're covering snipers, we're running the board, I'm cutting tape, I'm plunging toilets, I'm shoveling the snow off the satellite dish on the roof. Yeah. I'm doing it all. And it was the best broadcast school that I could have gotten. I learned everything, fell in love with radio, and really the community format, when it's all said and done, that will be probably what I'm ending up doing as a rich old man, hopefully, with my old man hobby, and just covering my little town's politics and the garbage pickup on the side of the street, the Boy Scouts and the youth tackle football. Like, community radio is really a bond. It's the people's airwaves, right? It's not all about money. It's not all about advertising. It's about creating a service, providing a service for your town, and deeply connecting with people over the power of communication. So when it's all said and done, community radio probably will be where you'll find me. But right now, there's just too much exciting things happening in technology and in sports media, specifically with sports betting becoming legal here in the States. The sports collectibles industry is so exciting. Media is not doing enough with collectibles. It's everything from autographs to NFTs, of course, cards and sneakers. It's a vast space and really ripe for somebody to kind of come in and create a platform where people that are authentic collectors can talk with other collectors and share their stories about the items that they hold deep to their heart. And we're so excited to cover that on Bettor Sports Network. We found an intersection between fantasy sports, sports betting, and collectibles. And we're kind of living that out every day. We launched our network in late August of 2022. So it's been not even 8 months, guys. And what a wild ride it's been.
Yeah, just don't show your Funkits. What do you call it? Funkos? What are they called? Don't show those to Lisa Ann. Just unless.
What is that?
Greatest,
Yeah.
she was on the show and she just like let Matt have it, but didn't know she was doing it. It was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, you'll have to check out that clip. It was fantastic. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better clip. But you mentioned it's amazing how many people will watch you unbox something, right? Whether it's collectibles or what. I've had an opportunity to catch DeFino there and Parsons and watch the show and listen to the show while I'm at work. And every once in a while, I'll jump in while they're doing their thing. And it's really, like you said, that interactive. You can kind of text them right there on the show. They see that. Much no different than how you could do that on StreamYard, but you can actually jump in and call in, like you said. And I think that's one of those things that kind of separates the Bettor Sports Network from some other places. You got the bettorsports.com. You've got the @Bettor Network going on there. And then there's the sports app as well, which, I mean, it's free for one. I don't know why more people don't take an opportunity to get it, but you also mentioned you're going into the gamification type pieces there. You're going to those live Q&As. I mean, that's kind of the next level of that interaction. You mentioned community is somewhere you kind of want to go to, you know, Rochester, Buffalo, something in your community. Well, this is your own little niche there. This is your own little community when we talk about the Bettor Sports Network. So the stuff that you guys got going on there, I find it absolutely fascinating. And we're going to talk about how you built that and those people, because you got to mention for putting the right pieces in place, the right people in place. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. But one thing I want to talk about here is fantasy football is fun. But one of the worst parts of fantasy football is having to be a commissioner. Now, I talked to several people that have been in some leagues, and they mentioned the term getting Deutscht. Now, do you know where that might have come from and what they're referring to?
I'm sure that was John Hansen who said that, and he's right. I am a terrible commissioner. When running the Sirius XM Fantasy Sports radio channel for over a decade, kind of put together anywhere between 15 and 20 drafts every year using all sorts of different software. And it was enough to just get the hosts in there. And my producers were working so hard, I couldn't ask them to be the commissioner. So I had to kind of set these leagues up myself and just did a terrible job. I mean, I'm working really hard on my day job. And I'm sorry if I don't have your waiver wire correct on week 1. We did the draft in early April. I respect the commissioners out there. Don't let me be a commissioner of your league, and don't ask me for directions either. I'm terrible with navigation, and I'm terrible as a league commissioner.
But the one thing that you're not terrible is building something. We've seen that get built there at Sirius XM, taking on that role, taking on that mantle, bringing us Channel 87, which wasn't there before. That's that fantasy network. And then doing it again with the Bettor Sports Network. Now, when we talk about the business end of things, when you are building something like this, how do you put that talent into place? What kind of people are you looking for your radio voices, for your video content? How do you put that team together?
Well, it's a lot of fun. What I'm doing now at Bettor Sports Network, everybody should be so lucky, in a position to pick the people that I want to work with, that we want to work with. And that has been so humbling and fun and fulfilling and amazing that people that have worked with me before want to work with me again. Let's just say it like it is. If they didn't want to work with me again, that would be telling me something. So really means a lot to me when people that I've worked with before, and some of them 2 decades before, and we hadn't worked together, really kept in touch since, because I'm terrible at keeping touch with people because I'm just working all the time. But for people like that to be able to come back and want to work with me, like Mark Malusis, who I met at WFAN in the early 2000s, who's gone on to be a big time host. And we really didn't keep in touch much over the last 2 decades. But when I was putting Bettor Sports Network together, me working near New York and Mark making a name for himself in the New York market and the national market, kept sort of rang rang Mark and told him what I was doing, and he was interested in working together again, just based on our couple of years of rubbing elbows against each other at WFAN. So really fulfilling that so many the people that I've worked with in my past want to work with me again. And I've met so many great people. I left Sirius XM on great terms on January 1st of 2022 and kind of used that year to finally go back to all the people I haven't been keeping in touch with for 2 decades, but also meet a lot of people. I'm Mr. LinkedIn. I invite everybody here to connect with me on LinkedIn. My Matt Deutsch profile's there. I try to be as active as I can. That's really my social media. You're not going to see much out of me on Twitter. LinkedIn's where I do my thing. I've met so many amazing people there that didn't know me from anything, didn't ask me for anything. I asked them for their help. They said yes. And everybody said yes. And whether it be a chat conversation, a phone call, meeting in person, to learn from all the people how to build a business, what to look for, mistakes to avoid, forever indebted to every single person in that LinkedIn community that helped me. And then to answer the question, as far as what I look for, number one, you got to be a high character person. That is number 1, 2, and 3 for me. Again, I've worked with a lot of talented people. It never ends up well. And this is regardless of what business you're in. It never ends up well if you're not working with high character people. You got to get selfish people out of there. You got to get people that are defensive out of there, people that silo information or don't like sharing, don't like rooting for other people, don't like communicating, have things to hide. You need to find high character people that are kind and nice. And I look for people that have ideas and kind of people that haven't had an opportunity to act on those ideas. I mean, to be honest, I really want someone not only to give me the idea, I want someone to take that idea from A to Z. And any step that you don't have along the way, we'll teach you. And if we don't know it, we'll go find somebody to help us. Like, that's kind of the stuff I love doing. I love kind of lighting a spark in people, giving them a platform to grow, seeing what they can do. I was so privileged at Sirius XM to hire people. I started out as hiring for entry-level play-by-play board operators, we call them. And you come in and you've got your Winnipeg Jets hockey game, and we're monitoring the game for goals. And when the Winnipeg Jets go to break, we go to commercial break and we play the commercials on Sirius XM. Then we come back to the broadcast, and I would hire all these people and kind of train them up on how to do it, but also kind of mentored them and learned from them and picked their brains. And as I was growing at Sirius XM, took them along with me. And then as they came into their kingdoms, they took me with them. And I built so many great relationships from the people that I've hired over the years that I've been privileged to see grow, that I've been so impressed with where they've gone, that they remembered that. And, that's how you network. That's how you make relationships with people. And for me, guys, it was kind of just all natural. I wasn't doing it so that somebody would help me 25 years later when I was building my own business. I just genuinely like people. I enjoy getting to connect with people. I enjoy challenging people. I enjoy kind of opening up their mind. I love working with really talented people that have kind of hit a ceiling and kind of have never been challenged or have never had anybody give them some constructive criticism. So, all those things to be able to open up people's minds and to kind of take their ideas and show them that they're reality. I love doing that stuff. So those are the kind of people I look for. And the radio voice is kind of the last thing to come.
Talk to us about an interview you've had, or a few interviews you've had that you went into it thinking one way about a player or someone you're interviewing, and you came out of it with a different opinion of them, good or bad.
Whoa. Well, I'll hold the bad ones out. I don't like talking negative about anybody, but you never, and again, you catch somebody on a bad day, you never really know what it's going to be. That is an interesting question. I mean, I've done so many interviews early on in my life when I was working at community radio, where again, I was covering stories. I was going into New York City to cover all the big political dinners and all the big fundraisers. So you're just interviewing people like, the governor or Robin Leach, or Cyril Mastrioni, who started Chirco and Le Cirque here in New York, or the guys who run the Four Seasons. Like, I was doing all these crazy interviews with people that were, just so beyond my world. my head was spinning. And then later in life, I've just done so little interviewing. I don't get to do so much of it. So I would guess, Robin Leach maybe would be somebody that I would say. He's passed away, but Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Robin Leach, he's got the majestic voice. But just to be able to kind of get him, he didn't break character for me off the air when we stopped our interview, but he kind of became a normal person for a little bit when I was talking to him. So that kind of surprised me a little bit. It's a good question, Major. I don't have a great answer for you.
No, that's a great answer. So talk to us about where were we? Let's see where we're here. I got lost. Talk to us about what you've learned through fantasy sports. Like, what has it taught you about yourself?
Whoa. Well, it certainly told me that I'm not right most of the time. And that's still kind of the same thing. Like, even in the industry, even in what I do now, and I've been doing it for so long, I'm supposed to have all the right answers and all, but I could tell you guys the truth. Every single day, I'll make this decision. I'll say something, and then I'm going to be proved wrong. Like, it's like, why did I even think that? Like, I'm still learning so much about myself and the way I kind of, just look at my sleepers, right? I'm not gonna be right about most of those. So what about,
we had the same sleeper, so you'll be right about most of them.
Yeah, it's funny because I do a lot better in my industry leagues where I'm playing with all these haughty-taughty fantasy guys who cover it, nonstop, and I win a lot of those, or some leagues, certainly my share. I can't win my home league with my idiot friends, who don't cover football. They don't watch it all the time like I do. And I come in and I execute my draft plan to perfection every single year with these guys. I get every player that I want to get, and I can't win the league. So, I think fantasy certainly taught me that no matter how much work you do, you're not going to be right all the time. And that is a game that's an oblong ball that bounces funny ways, and you're not supposed to be right all the time. Baseball's different. Baseball, you do the work, you're going to win. You got the best team, you're going to win. In football, you best team, you're probably not going to win. So maybe it's like that in business too. There's a lot of parity out there. There's a lot of luck that comes involved. There's a lot of timing. There's a lot of everything. And we know we have a great idea at Bettor Sports Network. I know I've got the right people and high character people. This is a crazy time to be doing business in any world, just as far as the technology and inflation and post-pandemic and what's happening in the media and NFTs and artificial intelligence. The one thing is for sure is you can't just stay stagnant. You can't just lock in a game plan. You have to be able to roll with the tide. You got to be able to find out where we're going next. And I give thanks that I am in a position in a smaller company to be able to innovate, to be able to go where the industry wants us to go, or to go where the market wants us to go. Just like fantasy football, where I'm telling you, DeAndre Swift in the first round was the right pick last year, and I'm telling you, Josh Allen in the second round was the right pick last year. I got proved wrong. Maybe my ideas for Bettor Sports Network weren't right. But what you have to do is trust your people and trust your ability to find the answer. It's like a Rubik's Cube, right? We're trying to figure out, does the market want this? Does the market want that? And just try, once you find it, kind of light fire on it and go. So we're kind of feeling ourselves out with a lot of different ways to create passion and entertainment and interaction around fantasy sports and sports betting and collectibles. We have live long form talk shows like I've always had, but for the first time, we're producing 60-second pieces of content that I can tell you. It's funny that we almost put as much strategy into a 60-second piece of content that we do a 3-hour talk show. It's got to have a beginning and a middle and an end. And how are we hooking people? And what do we want them thinking when we're done? And what do we want them doing when we're done? And what images are we putting in? It's just wild to me that I'm pouring so much into something that is gone like that. We're doing gamification on the Bettor Sports Network app. We're doing live question and answer contests, predictive questions. Last week during the Masters, we were asking questions. Is Tiger Woods going to 3-putt this hole? Who's going to have the longest drive on the 17th hole? We call it ViperCast, and we do all the sports, and we ask predictive questions while our audience is watching the game. This is the first time in my career, guys, that I've conceded that you're watching something else. You're not watching Bettor Sports Network. You're not listening to me. We accept the fact that you are watching your sporting event on your phone or on your TV, but our companion app is going to make your experience better. That we're not going to bother you and intrude on your television experience, but we are going to ask you a question when the time's right. You're going to be able to answer those questions. And if you want to, chat with fans that are watching the same game and have a social experience with like-minded people and have a lot of fun predicting what's going to happen next. And we could do it for the Academy Awards. We've done it for the Masters. We've done the XFL. We've done the WNBA. We do ViperCast for everything. And who knows, maybe that's the future of our business. So I love the fact that we're nimble enough to be able to go into different areas, that I've got people that wear a million hats, that work 24 hours a day because it's a passion for them and kind of want to all make this work. And it is work. But if you don't love what you do, you're not going to last long. So fortunately, we all love it. We're all in the grind, and we love talking about it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So this is like one of my favorite questions of the show. We ask it pretty much every show. It's kind of like a roll call or like a shout out. So name some people who helped you along the way in your career, like you respect and you look up to.
Well, there's so many. Well, thank you. It started out in community radio. The president of WVOX, William O'Shaughnessy. This is an independent radio guy for 60 years, flamboyant, but taught me a lot about radio and obviously gave me a great opportunity at WVOX and WRTN. Getting over to WFAN, my program director there, Mark Chernoff, who's a legend on the Mount Rushmore of sports programmers, being able to give me an opportunity at WFAN and teach me. And at WFAN, I met Steve Cohen, who was producing over there and went over to run Sirius Sports in the early 2000s before the merger to Sirius XM. And Steve brought me in, and Steve really, one of my mentors, taught me so much about broadcasting, gave me a great opportunity, believed in me. Steve gave me a lot of tender loving care, we'll say, and certainly let me know when I wasn't doing well. And I respect his management style. And I can respect people that have done every single job in the business. So you take more from those people rather than someone that's never done your job before. And Steve had done it all. He knew when you were BSing him. He knew when you had a problem, how to solve it. And Steve believed in me and asked me to create the proposal for Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I gave him a binder this big about what it would be. And like I said before, he was able to get the CEO, Mel Karmazin, to say yes. So Steve is probably my number one mentor. People in the fantasy space probably know the name Rick Wolf. He's a Hall of Famer, a million times over, built CBS Sports in the 90s. Worked over at NBC and Roto World, worked at Fantasy Alarm. Now Rick Wolf is at Spotlight Sports Group, and Rick is just another person that's been behind me every step of the way, and proud to call a very dear friend. So many people at Sirius XM. I could go on and on, right? My staff. I had the same executive producer for over 10 years, Rob Touzé, hockey guy. You guys would like him. So just the producers that worked with me over the years, that challenged me to get better every single day and listened to me and kind of, sort of followed my lead. Just so many of them, too many people to name. Al Williams, another Fantasy Alarm guy that I'm working with now at Bettor Sports Network, is one of the top people in my life. That's been able to sort of help me, give me a lot of advice on how to build a business properly, how to treat people properly. And I think all the mentors that I have, that's the common bond. How do we treat people the right way? Steve Cohen, Rick Wolf, Al Williams. These are pick up the phone and talk it out people. This is let's talk in person. These are not text message and email people. These are people that have respect. And even when we're having a tough conversation, that we're doing it transparently. We're doing it with kindness. We're putting ourselves on the other side of the conversation. Now, of course, there's a lot of people in the industry that probably hate me and probably say, well, you weren't so nice to me, Matt. And I try my best to be kind to everybody. And, all I can say is, it's kind of tough in the corporate side and we have to do things we don't always believe in and kind of take responsibility when our names are on the product and kind of, do things for the collective good. So I have had a lot of tough conversation and even with those people that listened there and respected what I had to say, even if they didn't like it, those people have helped me too, to be able to get past some pretty tough situations. So there's too many to thank. But there are amazing people in this industry. I work with so many of them at Bettor Sports Network, from Jason Wolf, another person who could be on the Mount Rushmore of sports programmers. He programmed WEEI in Boston during all the great years with the Red Sox in the early 2000s to the mid-teens. And Tommy Roush, who's an amazing person that I've met at Bettor Sports Network. He does collectibles. He does our website. He's a radio guy. He's a TV guy, collectible guy. He's a genius. And we've got a lot of smart people that I'm kind of the dumb one in the room. So, it's amazing to be able to put myself in a room with so many smart people and not tell them what to do. Let them tell me what we're going to do.
Right.
And anything I bring to the table to kind of just sort of push it along and kind of organize everybody, that's kind of my role now, and kind of just let the smart people be smart. Yeah.
Point guard. Yeah.
You know what? I fully understand being the dumb one in the room. That's kind of my forte. You know what? I'm proud to carry that mantle wherever I go. But you talk about respect. Well, everyone we talk to, and I talk to a lot of people before every show, that respect that you have for others is reciprocated right back to you. I mean, I did not find a single person that had anything negative to say. And actually, there's so many positive things about what you've done in the industry and what you've done for others. I know DeFino is one of those guys that does a lot for other people. He's got like that DeFino fantasy football tree. Well, you got your own little fantasy football tree there, your own sports media tree where people kind of branched out. And if it wasn't for people like you, other people may not have an opportunity there. So thank you for all that you've done for everybody in this industry. But I did some other research here, and I learned that the University of Buffalo was the #1 party school in Western New York. It hosts the largest Greek life in that part of the state there. And that was per 2022. Not to mention all the wild Canadians that happen to cross the border with their 6% beer. So I have to imagine that in the early to mid 90s, that was pretty much the same kind of thing going on down there.
Absolutely was. Buffalo, great bar town. You see the sun 4 months a year. You get basically June, July, August, and September. That's it for the sun. So we're drinking the other 8 months for sure. Terrible weather, terrible food. Great people, though. Really great people in Buffalo, and a wonderful place to go to college and kind of just push it to the limit. I'm a passion guy and a kind of high energy and an all or nothing guy. So there was very little school going on, and there was a lot of partying, and I kind of got it all out of my system, guys. I did everything that you possibly want to do that you don't want to be doing in your 40s. So amazing place. We didn't have monster fraternity parties. We didn't have monster fraternity houses that all our friends at Michigan and Cornell and Syracuse had. We had bars, and the bars were open to 4 a.m. At the University of Buffalo, and I had no money, and it was fine. We were doing, back then, you could do all you could drink. They kind of took that away because it was so unsafe. Now, think about, $4, you get a plastic cup, you're drinking beer for 4 hours. There's 1,000 people with cups trying to get a beer. Not a single person is tipping the bartender.
Right.
And it's kind of the way I kind of went through it. And playing rugby helped a lot. Pledging the fraternity helped a lot. And, I just had so much fun. I just pushed it as much as I could. And Buffalo holds a very dear place to my heart. And every time I'm there, I kind of get that feeling again.
Man, that's amazing. That sounds fun. I actually had one of my junior college teammates actually transferred to Buffalo. I can't remember his name, though. His last name is Miller. He played tight end. I can't remember his first name. I think Chris Miller, maybe, but he went to Buffalo. But give us one last piece of advice for those of us trying to make it in this industry.
Oh, there's so much. I mean, my #1 is refuse to be outworked, right? I mean, there's so much you can't control. Like I said, luck, timing, technology failing, market changing, you get sick. Like anything can happen, but what you can control is your effort. What you can control is how much time you're going to put into it. So, I mean, that's kind of been my hallmark from the beginning, in a respectful, competitive way. Refuse to be outworked. I'm not walking over my coworkers to get to the top.
Right.
I'm just working as hard as I can, and I'm going to help you work hard too. And let's work hard together. I can't let it go without saying, the value of networking, the value of relationships. If you're a younger person, even in college, start doing it now. Just write everybody's name down that you come in contact with, and the more I just offer to help people, the more help I get. And it's amazing the way that works. Like, you don't have to have any motives when you're trying to ask for help or ask somebody to help you do something, it's really, how could I help you? And the more you ask that question of people, the more they're going to want to help you. And that's really been it. So work your ass off and network with people and just be nice to people.
So off camera, we were talking about some parenthood stuff and some fathering. Give us your best piece of fatherly advice.
Wow. Well, I mean, I just don't have the patience. I respect the parents that really have a lot more patience than I do. You know, the more special needs your children are, the more patience you need. And I'm learning that every day to be more patient. You know, as far as for me goes, you know, I try to get down with my kids on their level. I'm much more into princesses and Disney and toys than I ever am about sports. I've kind of lost a lot of my sports passion, and now it's all about my kids. So it's a lot more fun when you know the names of the characters, and you could ask your kids how many Disney princesses show their belly button. You know, the answer is Jasmine and Ariel, only two. You know, and if you could sort of get in with them on their level with Scooby-Doo and Mickey Mouse, and when they grow up and kind of get into their video games, like that's made it fun for me to kind of get into their world. And we're still building forts in the Deutsch house, and we're still making cookies and having fun. And, you know, there's so much hard about being a parent. I don't know how many, you know, care how many you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's so hard. And it gets harder when they get older because they have bigger problems. So you really got to try to find a way to have fun and to get on their level and be creative. And the harder I work, the harder that is. And I miss it so much that I'm pouring everything into Bettor Sports Network, and I'm not able to do all of the fun stuff I've been able to do with my kids when I was younger. So hopefully we'll get back at it. But to all the parents out there, I mean, sometimes you just need a drink or to take a breath and to calm yourself down, because it's difficult, and the kids find new ways to challenge you every single day.
Always.
All right, before you go, is there a trick to get the kids to eat their vegetables? And does it involve pancakes by chance?
Well, it's funny. I mean, earlier when I only had one, I would be able to hide all the food in pancakes. I made pink pancakes, blue pancakes. I was putting beets in pancakes, bananas. I've done it all. But now my kids have come out of the womb with this crazy hyposensitive nose smell. Like they won't go near fruit. They won't go near healthy food. My 5-year-old, like, I don't know how he's even growing. He eats nothing. So, I mean, there is no trick to get this kid to eat, but I would say you can hide a heck of a lot of stuff in cookies and pancakes. You got to try to be smart about the color of the food. But if if you're making chocolate chip cookies, I would recommend like putting a little cauliflower in there. If you're making brownies, you could probably get away with a little spinach in there. And then, yeah, play it up. Pink pancakes, put beets in there, blueberry pancakes, blue pancakes. So, you know, that's a tough one for me because my kids, they're just not eating right now. And we've learned everybody has something, right? Your kids have this, your kids have this. My kids aren't eating right now, and it's terrifying. And, you know, there's nothing worse than to not being able to feed your kids. So, you know, we're working through it. I'm doing food therapy now with my kids, you know, and learning that kind of it. And, you know, God, they're just so amazing and interesting people. And again, it takes a lot of patience, but the pancakes trick does work.
Well, what does work is this show, this interview. And if we're talking about Western New York, we've got Canadian bacon, we've got Khalil Mack, we've got the University of Buffalo, but the greatest export ever could be Matt Deutsch coming from Western New York there to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Make sure to head to the Bettor Sports Network, get in on that gamification, get in on all the action that they got going over there. So Matt, once again, thank you for your time here. And I hope we get to do this again really soon.
Well, thank you for having me. Shout out to Fantasy Points. You guys do great work over there, and we root for everybody in the industry, and I'm so happy to be here. I'd like to invite everyone to download our free newsletter. Please sign up at bettorsports.com. We can email it to you every day, better insights, and you can find out what we're doing every day. Sign up for the free newsletter at bettorsports.com.
Hey, there ain't nothing better than free, and we'll see you next week. Isn't that so, Major?
Always.
Thanks, guys.